The meeting comes to order. Our first interview today will be Mr. Curt Posey. And Curt, what tickled that you applied for this? And if you give us a few minutes of why you applied, just a little overview of yourself.
Yes, sir. I was born and raised in Hoover. Grew up off of Hayden Street in Bluff Park. I went to Shades Mountain Elementary School, Simmons, and then I went to Berry for 3 years and graduated from Hoover in 1995. I bought my first home in Hoover after, my parents finally said, hey, get out after college. And in 2001, and I have two children. My wife wanted me to say for the record that we have two children. One is in second grade, and the other one starts kindergarten in the fall. She asked me why I left him off, and I said, well, he's technically not in school yet, so that's why I did that. The reason I wanted to apply for this is when last year, when we had all of the talk about the restructuring the school system, the rezoning, I went to Bluff Park without any knowledge of it, sat in and listened to Mr. Craig's presentation, and from there got very interested in fighting it, trying to figure out the facts and everything going on. So the first thing I did was I started researching it and researching kind of the history of things, because having grown up in the school system and having graduated from the school system, I was like, something's not right here, because we're always making room for one more and doing things like that. So I researched it and kind of caught up on some things that I'd missed when I was in college and busy starting my family. And from that, I started meeting people. I met people from River Chase and met people from different areas that were involved in the same school fight, and started attending meetings. And they kept saying, well, hey, there's a position coming up, and why don't you run for it? And I was like, well, I guess I could. I don't know that I'm qualified. And then just kind of kept going on from that, and then here we are today.
Okay. Curt, let me just ask you some general questions. You know how many students roughly are in the school system?
Yes, there are 13,904 students.
Okay. You know how many schools we have in the school system?
We have 10 elementary schools, 1 intermediate school, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools. 3 middle schools, I'm sorry, I forgot one.
You know roughly what the budget of the school system is?
The budget this year, the estimated budget for 2015, the estimated revenue is $158,996,995.59. The estimated expenses $165,989,973.59, and that is a budget deficit of $6.6 million.
Okay. You have roughly an idea what the total reserves in the school system are?
We discussed that at one point. I remember talking to you about it and talking to Mr. Smith about it. The last time we talked, I believe it was $101 million, and that is the tax referendum from Jefferson County.
Okay. How do you understand the role of a school board member to be?
The role of a school board member to me is to be an advocate for the parents, and to take the recommendations from the superintendent and from the Board of Education and analyze them and vote up or down on those resolutions based on the interests of the school system and the interests of the community.
What's the role of the superintendent?
The role of the superintendent is to make policy and make decisions based on the best interests of the school system as a whole.
Additional questions from the council?
Mr. Posey, first of all, thank you for your application. Thank you for taking the time to be here. One of the things I like particularly, I like your idea of taking the board meetings to the schools. I think that'd be an important, communication piece, and I like that. But could you explain a little bit about what you said about the community groups and social media, how you would kind of intertwine these things in order to make the communication a little bit better with the schools?
Yes, sir, absolutely. One of the things we've seen from these community groups that popped up, a lot of it was because of the rezoning, but from there they've gone on and continued, is the school system, like take for instance Bluff Park. They'll put out that they're going to have a cleanup day, and they'll put it out on the website, on the Facebook page, set around a cleanup day. That gets to a number of people that not only have kids in the system, but maybe they don't. Like my parents always ask me, what can we do to help your school? What can we do to help? And you'll see things like that. One of the instances that we talked about was when they had the Yellow Jacket attack. The next day that came and take care of it. is reaching out, using that component to reach out to the community, to not only reach the people that have kids in the school system, but people that are going to have kids going in the school system, and grandparents in the system, to bring them into the schools as volunteers, to fill needs. You know, one of the needs we have at Bluff Park was they needed a water fountain. They wanted a water fountain out on the playground, and a gentleman donated money to get a water fountain out on the playground because his grandson had started kindergarten. To bring the community into the school, that's the main focus there, because you know, I look at the numbers, and I look at the state numbers and how we're decreasing in funding, and how that we have a deficit each year. If we can get more volunteers and more people involved in our school system, get the entire community surround the school systems, I think we can help out the foundation, maybe find new donors for the foundation. We can certainly have more volunteers in our school, and that's one of the things with the rezoning plan that people are upset about, is losing those volunteers. Well, my mom's about to retire. So, you know, having that opportunity out there and show my mom, well, they're doing this, this, and this, and getting her into the schools, and, you know, she's got an avenue of something to do, a way to give back, and that's the idea around that.
Okay, and you would use that platform to kind of advise, you know, the parents and the students, maybe what the board itself is looking at and prioritizing, and what may come up in the next 3 months or something like that?
Absolutely. And you know, you'll see now, Derek does a great job of putting the agenda on every one of those pages he's involved in, so people know what's coming up. And, you know, having the way for them to see what we're doing, and, you know, maybe, like I said, a need. Really, the PTOs could use it as well. If they have a need, they have something coming up. But a way to communicate with them, because I know that's a big thing, that's a big goal for the superintendent. It's a big goal for the superintendent coming in, is that community interaction and that stakeholder interaction.
Okay, thank you.
Have you attended any meetings this year? Any
Yes,
school
sir, I
board
have.
meetings?
And I attended the January meeting. I had conflicts in both February and March, but Mr. Fulton records them, so I listen to his recordings. That's a wonderful thing, and I thank you for that.
What about PTO meetings? Have you had anything with those?
They meet at noon, and it's very difficult for me to get away at noon, but I do keep in touch with Georgia and try to see what she needs as far as things I can do to help.
Okay. Going back a minute on your thoughts on what board members actually do. The policy from the on the board members, their exact duties are, the primary responsibility of the board is to establish, review, and revise policy. And rather than to exercise day-to-day administrative functions. So policy is the main objective of board members.
Additional questions from the council?
Also, in light of what Mr. Green was stating, it is the superintendent is the only one that can bring items before the board, and it is the board's responsibility to vote those issues up or down. So you as a board member would not be able to, from the floor, say that you're going to move to increase salaries or to adjust funding from one high school to another, or things like that. Something interested me when you first started talking was that you were concerned whether or not you had the skills necessary to be a school board member. How did you finalize that within yourself?
Well, I looked at the board member that's rolling off and thought a lot about, you know, Ms. Frazier's, when she came to the board, and why she came to the board, and one of the reasons she came to the board was she saw it as as you know, her community service, and she came as a parent who had conflict with the school board, and that's the reason why she got involved. And I thought about those things, and then also thought about, you know, what I do with technology at Children's, and what I do with the continuing medical education part of Children's, and thought, okay, well, maybe I am a better fit than I thought. But initially, when you go into something like that, and you look at the people that are on the board and their longevity and where they came from to the board, it's a little bit intimidating, especially my age, because I'm 38 years old, and you know, and a graduate of the high school. Most of these folks came from the outside to this position. So, you know, my question was, how did I fit in with that? And I know Derek, and I've known Derek for a number of years from college and everything like that, and I guess kind of that helped me along saying, well, you know, that's the way to fit in there as well.
You Derek from college?
Yes. We both went to UAB.
He claimed to be a lot older than you. What, did he fail a few grades?
Additional questions to the council?
Mr. Posey?
Yes.
I think it's fair to say you were a rather outspoken critic and opponent to every single rezoning plan that was proposed. So as a board member, how do you reconcile that? Do you see yourself kind of maintaining that role of being an outspoken critic or an outspoken part of the Board of Education, if you're opinion?
I do, but I think the right plan would change that. And my problems with these plans, the first one was what you're taking away from the schools as far as volunteer support, as far as, you know, active parents. The second one was what you're shifting around. Are you picking on a certain subset? I believe the right rezoning plan that also factors into future growth with the development agreements we have on the table with Ross Bridge, with the preserve, taking those things into consideration, and especially what's building out behind the Met and Trace Crossings, taking all of those factors into considerations in the right plan, I would be for that. But we've got to look far into the future of what we're doing. This plan and the issue that I have with what's going on now is we're not rehabbing the school that needs PR help. We're ignoring it, and they're doing some great things that maybe we as board members maybe need to be in the school and saying, hey, look at this, or, you know, with media relations, having them in the school, because we're writing a check to the private school within the city, and they're adding on. I mean, it's well advertised that they're adding on. So if we're going to build all these houses behind there, we've got to have a way to get those kids into our system. Not that we want to say that the private school's bad, but if a private school's adding on and we see our enrollment shrinking over here, we've got to fix that problem. And that's why, and I did not feel that what he was putting on the table fixed the problem. It did, you know, you talk to people that were going to be moved to Trace, and they're like, well, you know, I'll just go to private school. We've got to fix the problem there and allow for future growth that we've signed off on that is going to happen.
Any additional questions from the council?
I'd like to follow that up if I could, if we got time. Mr. Lytle made a real good point. And he used the word reconcile. What if you think it's the right plan and the board thinks it's the right plan, but you've got advocates out there kind of simulating what you did? You know, they don't like it and they're opposed to it. How are you going to manage that when you've got a great number of parents complaining about it, but you think it's the right thing to do?
Yes, sir. We need to. The issue with that, and one of the things that I applaud Mr. Craig for doing, is he came to Bluff Park and he sat down with us and talked to us. And when he did, and he explained himself, no, we did not agree with him, but we talked one-on-one. We need to get, instead of having it go to the extreme that it went to, where you were blindsided with a plan, you were blindsided with another plan, and you had a reaction, to bring the plan to the people and sit down with them. If I am an advocate for the plan, I don't have a problem sitting down with anyone and talking to them about it. But I need to make myself available to do that. And I think the board members do as well, even though, you know, a lot of times you were hit with, you know, I'll use Derek for an example. Derek was at a River Chase meeting with me just to listen, just to hear what they had to say. That's what I would do. I would go to the meetings and sit there and listen to hear what they had to say, and then say, well, this is my thoughts on it, and come back together. But I have to take their opinion into consideration. I represent them. So I have to sit down with them, and we have to come together as community stakeholders and discuss it.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, Mr. Posey? We appreciate you applying. We
Yes, sir.
appreciate you interviewing, Mr. Posey.
Thank you
very much.
I specifically wanted to thank you for your explanation and candor on something that happened a long time ago.
Yes,
and I
sir.
wish you the best of success in
Thank
what
you.
you're trying to do.
Yeah, Mr. Bradstreet. Major Bradstreet.
I forgot about that.
Does that mean he's gonna outrank everybody since the
Major, not outright, Colonel Ward.
Oh, we got to sign that. Sorry.
And if you wanna sit that, Mike, Jan, if you wanna sit that down on that table, it's okay with me.
Do what? Oh, just put it on the table.
Figure's gonna go to sleep 6 hours.
Yeah, I think it was left off.
You don't have to answer.
Convenient.
Morning. Morning, Major.
Good morning, sir.
If you take a few minutes and just tell us about yourself and why you're applying.
Okay, good morning again, or good afternoon. Thank you for your time. I retired from the Army in 1993, came to Hoover. My son started the elementary school at Trace Crossings. I came here in September looking for a job. I took a job teaching Army Junior ROTC at Woodlawn High School in Birmingham in November of '93. I took that job because I needed a job. And I stayed there 5.5 years because I saw a need. Fast forward to December of 2013, I am leaving Ramsey High School after 13 years. I was a junior ROTC instructor, department chair, coach. And it dawned on me that after Christmas break was over that I wasn't going back to work. And it was kind of after 47 years of what I felt was a professional life with purpose. It was kind of a shocking event in my life that, that now after all that, I was facing the honey-do list and finding something to do. So I've been involved in a lot of veterans organizations, and I started substitute teaching, and that's fulfilling because that's a very, subbing is important. You need good subs. And so then when I saw this opportunity come along, I thought about my son who started at Trace Crossings and finished Hoover High School in 2006, and what a great education he got and all the fantastic opportunities that he got. And I thought to myself, well, that would be a good opportunity to do something with purpose, to do something that I would be motivated to do, something that I have a lot of experience in the educational field, 20 years in the classroom as a teacher, department chair, coach, and then I was also a year at Fort Benning in the leadership division. I was an instructor and branch chief, and then I've been subbing for over about a year. So I feel like I can make a significant contribution because of my experience, because I'm motivated to do so, and because I have the time to devote to being a school board member and helping the school system continue to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Do you have an idea how many students are in the school system, Ron?
Around 13,500,
Do you have any idea how many schools we have?
17.
Good answer. Do you have, the approximate budget of the school system?
Ooh. I think personnel's around 12 million.
Okay, the total school system budget.
I do not. I would,
Do you
yeah,
know
I'd
what
have to
the
get.
approximate reserves are in the school system? Total reserves?
I don't about. I would say it's 1 month operating expense, but I know that, but I don't know what it is.
What do you understand the role of a school board member?
The school board member is, of course, a part of a team that includes the superintendent, but they're not the daily manager of the school system. They're the people that set the focus, the goals, and provide the assets to the superintendent to run the school system to make it successful, to accomplish the goals that the board have set for them. So my part in there would be to help with that.
What's the role of the superintendent in your mind?
The role of the superintendent is in my mind, is the daily manager and leader of the school system. I would think that the board and the superintendent together would sit down and help, everybody has to make the goals and objectives of the school system. And then the board provides the resources, and the superintendent goes out and does the job to make sure those goals are obtained.
Additional questions from the council?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bradstreet, or how would you prefer to be
It's
called?
okay.
Okay. We got majors, we got colonels, we got admirals, we got. all
You can
kinds of
call me
people in
Ron
there.
or Mr.
So,
or Major, doesn't matter.
In your document, you had stated the school board is the map and compass of the system. Just want to clarify your understanding that the school board cannot bring anything, any action items to themselves to vote on, like the city council. Each individual council member could bring a topic or an ordinance that they would like the others to consider. The only things that a school board member can do is to vote on the recommendations of the superintendent. So I guess I just want to make sure that you are aware, and I think you kind of clarified to a degree when you talked about being the map and compass, when you talked about the board working with the superintendent. But I just want to make sure that you understood that the superintendent is somewhat autonomous in the fact that he or she brings all action items before the board.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Major, have you been able to attend any meetings this year, any school board meetings?
I have not.
Any PTO meetings?
I have not.
And did you say you have been a substitute teacher
Yes, sir.
this past year?
Since January of 2014.
What school?
Every school in Hoover except for Crossroads. I don't think I've been to South Shades Crest Elementary, but every other one. And then some in Shelby County, depending on what's open.
Additional questions from council?
What do you see as the real challenges facing the Hoover School today?
Well, it depends on what reports you read. We're not doing nationally that good, some we're doing great. But I just think it's, my opinion, and talking to my neighbors, it's a matter of communication. They're getting mixed messages about where we are as a school system. They're concerned about, they see this report and they go, oh, everything's okay, and then the next thing they hear, we're cutting this out. And because we're trying to save money, and then we're gonna do this. And I think that the number one issue in my mind is making sure that there's transparency and there's good communication to all the stakeholders in the system. The system, I asked, when I sub, I listened to the teachers, and I think by and large, most of them are pretty happy. They feel like they're getting good monetary support, they feel like they have good leadership, good administration, but there's some concerns about sustaining programs that are above and beyond. There's some concerns, and I just think the communication from the board, and from the leadership to the people, in the community that, these things are really up. Here we are. This is what we're dealing with, and that's their major concern, from what I hear. And as a citizen, that's the way I felt too. That hey, I'll give you an example of the busing thing. I live off South Shades Crest Road. I thought, wow. I had to if I'm subbing at Hoover High School and I live 5 miles, if I want to be there without sitting in traffic for 40 minutes, I got to leave at 7:15, and I don't have to be there till 8 o'clock. So I just thought, what are they thinking about? Maybe they should ask some people, before they just bring that on. So I think communications and transparency preparing for the future, hiring the right superintendent, dealing with changes in the school system.
Additional questions from the council? Mr. President, Mr. Bradstreet, I apologize for coming in late, but in your application, you state that one of your most important responsibilities as a school board member is that every personnel decision made must be focused on success in the classroom. How does a school board member tie in with personnel decisions?
I think by providing the resources to the superintendent and the hirers to make sure they've got the resources to go after the best people, making sure that the board, the people in the school have the ability to properly evaluate the teachers in the classroom. You know, I mean, I sub over at Hoover High School, and there's, I think, 2,800 something students in there, and that principal cannot go into every classroom and sit down for 40 minutes and watch every teacher and evaluate their ability to teach. And they've got to have the resources to make sure that those teachers are number one, those teachers have the resources they need to teach properly. And somebody's got to go in there and evaluate the teacher and the outcomes from the class. And it's a big administrative burden, but it's something that has to be done.
Thank you. Additional questions?
Working within the school system, and it's like you said, depending on who you're talking to. I know the previous superintendent had a number of meetings with the mayor where he identified that there were no money issues, but then again he turns around and busing issues and things like that. Do you have any understanding as to financial issues? Where would you turn if you found that there were financial issues? Do you expect the city to provide any and all funding that would come with any needs, or would you go to the citizenry?
My first question when it
I
comes to
guess I'm bringing this up because of your affiliation having worked in the classroom.
my first response is that anytime that you're dealing with a budget or money, there's a problem, my first question is, are you using the money that we're giving you now properly? I mean, are you frugal with the taxpayers' money? Are you using it now and you can't meet the goals that have been set? If you're not using the money properly, and you can't meet your goals, well, maybe we need to look at how you're using your money to meet the superintendent's goals. And then I think if the answer is no, you're not using the money properly, then you've got to make sure the money's used properly. If the answer is yes, we are good stewards of the taxpayers' money, then you've got to relook additional resources. And I think it's just situational. You just can't say yes or no. It's enough money, or until you know the situation.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Bradstreet.
Thank you for your time.
Margie, I need to ask you a question.
Paul, how are you today? And I had some resumes or curriculum vitae to also add to everybody, if that's all right.
Dr. King, if you would, if you'll just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're applying.
Well, the Dr. King's recent as of April Fool's, so I'm sincerely hoping that they weren't pulling a big prank on me. So getting used to that. But I'm Katie King, and I grew up as the daughter of an Army Special Forces officer. Attended schools all around the world, in Germany, South Korea, up and down the East Coast. and then landed here in Hoover, Alabama, and can't think of anywhere else better to live. As you can see, my background has been in education here in Birmingham and in Hoover. So you ask why I'm interested. As you get to know me, I'm someone who's interested in almost about everything you can think of. And that's what I picked up from being in the Army. Wherever you move, you get interested in whatever they have to offer. So Hoover City's vision for its students is to create lifelong learners, and I sincerely believe I am a poster child for that. But in what I've chosen to pursue in anything, be it sports, academics, my career, I feel that I've been drawn to leadership. And so I'm really interested in the opportunity to come and work alongside and advise whoever the new superintendent happens to be. Right now, so I think that would be a nice fresh time to come in and assist on the board. I think nationally throughout our country, right now, even though we're 15 years into the 21st century learning model, we're moving from industrial era education into knowledge-based education where knowledge is at your fingertips. And Hoover is trying to bring in technology, and you'll see that's what my dissertation topic was on, is how to implement technology in school systems for leaders, because there's just not much research out in that area. So I would just kind of like to be a part of all of those changes in crafting policy to make large-scale impact in this community that I really love to be a part of. I think specifically, I currently am a parent of young school-aged children. I have been a long-term member of this community. I've been an experienced educator and curriculum designer and a coach, so which was very intensive experience as well. And I feel like if you look at the New South research that's come out, people of Hoover want a great school system, but those areas of educators, community members, and parents have distinctive voices that are to be heard, and they want certain things to happen. And I think I could help provide a vantage point for bridging those different voices. For interest areas, I love to read, I love to research, and I like to think critically. And I feel the job of the board is to aid the superintendent by asking critical questions. And so I think I could hopefully provide that as well. But basically, I just am here to help Hoover in however I can.
Thank you. Do you have any idea how many students we have in our school system?
About 14,000.
I understand how many schools we have.
2 high schools, 3 middle schools, 10 elementary schools.
You understand what approximate budget of the school system is?
Very large. I have not, I will say honestly, I've worked with school budgets because my dissertation, What Defense Was, Wednesday. I have not poured through the Hoover budget as is appropriate for preparing for this, and I apologize that honestly with Easter and my doctoral defense, I'm saying I'm a researcher. I give you that. I think anyone who knows me could say that, but I do understand school finances. I understand states give money. You have federal government that gives money and local fundings, and they all come with certain earmarks and budgetary constraints. And so there's a limit to what even the school board can do with that. But I think I could be a creative thinker on how to approach those as well.
You know what the approximate total reserves of the school system are, so to speak?
I know that, about 35 million you should have a third of your operating expenses of a school year's budgeted, held off to the side in reserve.
Okay. What's the role of the school board member in your opinion?
To provide governance you are to be the eyes and ears of the superintendent, to hear from your community. You are to bring forward their ideas. It is not to be in the classroom in the trenches writing the policy, but to look at what budget is presented and to make the best educated advice that you possibly can to guide the superintendent to help Hoover excel.
What's the role of the superintendent?
The role of the superintendent is he or she where the buck stops. It's to look out for the best interests of every child in this area to make sure that our tax dollars are being used wisely, efficiently, and for the greatest benefit of each of our students. You know, right now there's a great deal of push that career and college readiness standards are what are the be-all, end-all, creating great workers for your society, for Hoover at large. But at the same time, the superintendent's job is to help each child fulfill his or her greatest potential and to create self-sufficient individuals to come back and better and fulfill their civic duties in our society.
Additional questions from the council?
Got one? All right.
Go ahead.
Dr. King, would you mind explaining your family's decision not to enroll your own children in Hoover schools? What message would that send to the community if you were appointed to a board who you chose not to send your children to?
Well, the one thing Hoover City Schools cannot provide is a faith-based education. That's just not legal in the state of Alabama and the state of anywhere in the U.S. So I would hope, living in the Bible Belt, that people could respect the fact that I care to educate my children in the system that I dedicated myself to for 15 years. I'm a graduate of that system. My parents were high school sweethearts in that system. And I think it is, you can see I've contributed to that and have been an active member there. But my children still interact on Hoover soccer teams. They are, I sit at gymnastics, I'm at the sitting stage of parenting where you're at the ballpark a lot and you hear interaction of what's going on. So there could be concern, but I do think a large number of our community here in Hoover don't have children in the system, and they still contribute to the tax base, and we all want to be part of a top 30 system, and we're proud of that. So I would hope that they could see beyond that and into the fact that I'm part of just helping to bring my talents and experiences forward.
Doctor, a couple of statements on my part real quick, just to help you with your knowledge.
Yes, sir.
The school board's budget is somewhere just north of $165 million a year.
Yes, sir.
Their current reserves are somewhere just under $100 million. With that knowledge and with your dissertation, what parts of your dissertation do you find applicable to Hoover City schools? And kind of as a second part of that, what type of issues do you feel are facing the Hoover school system at this time?
Well, to begin with, I began my dissertation wanting to see how using NUCs could, working with ACT, could help improve students' test scores. Were there different trials we could do? And as such, I worked with Barnes & Noble, and they advised me to go see the NUC pilot program in Green Valley. And so I did at Karen Derrick's classroom, and she had worked with me at Prince of Peace. So I saw the NUC pilot program in action. I also went to Gwynn School to see that as well. I followed along in the news, and quite frankly, from an outsider's perspective, I was very concerned. I'm excited about the zealous nature of moving forward, excitement of bringing technology in, but the pilot study was supposed to take place over 3 years. And after 1 year, Hoover decided and said in the newspaper, parents love it, kids love it, we're launching forward. And it was a $30,000 pilot initially for 45 students. I thought that was very expensive if you extend it to every child gets a device. That concerned me because and so as I followed through, Tuscaloosa did a study as well saying, let's evaluate that pilot program. And they rated it a 1 out of 5 stars, 1 being the lowest on the project management. From that, Hoover only investigated, to my knowledge from what was reported in the press, they went to 1 school in Texas to go observe the iPads, and that had only been in existence there for 1 year. So it's not surprising that they came back and hit a stumbling block. But I do think there's something to be positively said about the way in which they said, we're going for it. Nobody in the nation's got this figured out. I really came to the second part of your question is where do you go next? How would it apply? Well, my findings did get back to policy. I observed a small rural school that's doing spectacular things here in Alabama. And there's a great deal of policy that needs to be made that is balancing how do you trust your children so that they can move forward, bring ideas, but policy of how do you protect your children when they're on all of these sites, when they're doing research. School is going to have to be restructured in more of a cross-curricular approach. And as you'll see from the curriculum I designed at Prince of Peace, which has been noted for its cross-curricular element as well. And that's what I also witnessed separately at this school system where I observed is just different approaches to modeling the school. So I think it's very easy to say, we're going to go purchase, purchase, purchase. We've got money. What started piquing my interest in actually serving on this board was at the same time we're saying, we're buying everybody, everything, we're having the same controversy of, but we're not going to provide buses. And so I think that's why we're at a certain dynamic right now with the issue of trust within the community. Now that doesn't mean that all budget money is the same, and so where some resources come from aren't all, but I do think Hoover may be falling into the issue of the long-term extended cost, because that one article that came out, I believe, in June of 2013 said, we're going to survey later. We don't know where the budget money is coming from, but we're moving forward. And so I don't think at that point in time it was anticipated that there was going to be a $17 million deficit, that I don't think that that was appropriate moving forward from my understanding. So I think policy making to craft the best possible opportunity for our students to maximize what we use, figuring out how to, if we're investing in this technology, utilize it to the best of its capability. We really need to increase and I think Hoover does a great job with professional development, but very specifically target the pedagogy. What are you doing to train teachers on how to really adjust their teaching with the technology to empower it, and how to have a long-term plan of sustainable technology. It's one thing to buy it. Most schools are borrowing money from their future and through multiple different approaches, but they're borrowing for equipment that will only last 4 years. And so where are we having a long-term plan for the continued funding, if that's the route that Hoover chooses to take to achieve its exceptionality?
Thank you, Dr. King. We appreciate you coming. We appreciate you applying.
All right.
One thing I would like to say is, if for some reason you don't get the appointment, I really wish you would take some of these thoughts and address them to the new superintendent and the board members, because I think you have some wonderful thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll get a lot of that from all of your candidates today, but I sincerely appreciate that.
Thank you.
Quickly, have you been able to attend any school board meetings this year?
I have honestly, I have attended school board meetings at other school systems. I have not been in Hoover's. This did not really come to other people requested that I come forward and apply, and that really came from the newspaper of nobody's applying. And I felt like Hoover deserved better than that. So no, but I would be a committed person for that. So that would be a weakness in my application, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. King, you were a Rhodes Scholar candidate
Yes, sir.
in 2000. If in fact you'd been chosen, what would have been your subject?
Well, I'm so glad I wasn't chosen at that time, because at that point I wanted to pursue English as my graduate study, and it took a while. My husband pursued medicine. He's a pediatric anesthesiologist at Children's Hospital, and so I sat back, let him finish his schooling, and that allowed me to teach for a while. And then I chose my path in administration, which I think fit me much better.
I bet your husband works with Juan Gutierrez and Mark Griggs.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Can I ask one more, Mr. President?
Sure.
Dr. King, you have a background, obviously, in education, and if you know the current makeup of our board, we currently do not.
You do
nor
not.
have we over the last year had someone with a background in education. How important is it, from your perspective, to have, when you're running a $165 million plus education quote-unquote business, how important is it to have an educator on there?
I think it depends upon the perspective of your current board and the makeup. And have you asked me a question? You know, what would you like to know? I'd like to know, what do you need for that team? But I feel like when you're making these decisions of technology in the classroom and technology, you know, your budget 80–85% goes to your teachers, but we're starting to have massive chunks that are going to technology. So I think for this current age of figuring out how to move technology into the classrooms, how to pay for professional development, I really think if you want your board to be critical thinkers to say, superintendent, are you considering all the factors? I think it would be essential. I don't think it, at other times, it may be as essential, and you don't want someone with a conflict of interest. That's why I'm not pursuing being part of the board in my system where my children go to school. I've watched systems where parents have such strong vested interest, and when it comes to their children, they can't step back. And so I feel like also with the issue of rezoning, to have someone who's aware of, if we adjust school age ranges for certain schools, to say, well, that's not developmentally appropriate. It's not, an Army brat is a different, an Army brat can go to all different schools and doesn't impact them in the same way that having multiple transitions are. But when you say we're having a freshman center for a few years and then not, it matters for the number of connections that students have, and it can have a long-term effect as well on them. So, okay. All right, well, I'll hustle out of here. Thank you so much for your time.
I have some remarks that I don't mind sharing with
That'd be
you
great.
all.
Hand it to us.
All right.
Good to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Ma'am.
And I'm going to look at my copy too.
That's good. If you just take a few minutes and tell us about yourself and why you're interested in applying.
Well, as you see, greetings to you all, and I want to first thank you for allowing me to give you some ideas that would explain why I might be a unique perspective to add value to the strategic decisions and leadership that the school board provides our city. I'm proud to say that Hoover is among the top 30 cities to live in the United States. And our community is full of growth. We've never been more diverse. We've never been more expansive. And a shining part of our success is our school system. From the test scores and the scholarships to the rigor and the achievements inside and outside the classroom, Hoover City Schools sets a standard in this state, which while one of my children did spend some time in private school at one time, we decided long ago that Hoover City Schools' commitment to excellence was the place for us. And we have made a great decision. We've been very happy with our decision for our family. And we know this has been an excellent decision for the families with children in our 17 schools throughout the city. And like I say, it's expansive. The things that make the city successful are also the same things that cause problems that may need to be solved. And problems are not bad things. You'll see I have written here, all successful cities and organizations have problems that must be solved. And if you're not part of something, and if you're part of something that doesn't have problems, that probably means you're not growing or advancing, and that could be the problem. So I would say that it would be easy to approach the challenges of our school system from the perspective of criticism. However, my approach has always been different. I have always been about making sure that we take action to solve problems. And that starts with building a consensus from our stakeholders and doing what is best for our students and moving in that direction. I served as PTO president just this past school year at Rocky Ridge Elementary School, and it became clear to me at that time that our playground was not accessible to our multi-handicap classroom. Rocky Ridge is the only elementary school in our school system that houses a multi-handicap classroom. These students feed into Berry. They stay there until they graduate. And it's well documented that These students thrive when they are outside playing and among their peers from other classes. It enhances their abilities, and it also helps with their level of education. So with the help of other concerned parents, stakeholders, we were able to research and visit other playgrounds and build a consensus as to what would be best for our students. So working alongside the principal at that time and Hoover City School Administration, I was able to lead the playground project from beginning to end, and we celebrated this new school year, 2014-2015, with an official ribbon cutting. Now I see what was once the vision, it is a reality. An ADA compliant, built to the highest standards, suitable for all children ages 5 to 12, and some grown-up children too. So I invite you to check it out if you haven't. Just as this playground project demonstrates, I firmly believe that on the other side of each of our recent challenges lies success, but we have to connect the dots. That is something that I was able to do for this project and take the action that's necessary, and I can do that. While the role of the school board is completely different than the day-to-day involvement of maybe, say, a parent or a PTO volunteer, many of the underlying philosophies are the same, and I believe the board should build a consensus on overall strategies to meet measurable goals. It's impossible to make everyone happy, as we all know. As a member of the school board, I would look to industry specifics, metrics, and manage toward them. I would encourage feedback from parents, teachers, and students, the overall community. And when the time is right, you set aside the talking, like I'm about to do right now, and you start moving forward. And I think that you will find that many of the same qualities that make a good parent, make a resourceful nonprofit communications director, which I have previously done, and as a PTO president, are also the same qualities that would make a valuable school board member. So I'm very much looking forward to being part of the solution and being part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Do you have an idea how many students we have in the Hoover school system?
I do.
How many?
Oh gosh, well, 13,000.
Okay. You know how many schools we have?
17 schools.
That's the right answer. Do you know what our approximate budget is a year?
Oh gosh.
Do you have any idea what the reserves, total reserves in the school system are?
The reserves, I do not.
Financial reserves.
I do not know the financial reserves.
What's your understanding of what a school board member's duties are?
I feel that a school board member should be approachable to the community and have an input at each meeting, obviously, to sit and listen and know what's going on in the community, be present at events, to be active and engaged, to represent well the city and the city council, to be the person that can really bring things to the table and move the school board forward and push through challenges.
What's your understanding of the role of the superintendent?
The superintendent is who the principals report to. The board is there to make policy and to measure policy, which would be measuring the superintendent's success. And that would be something that would then come from, obviously, the schools. So the superintendent, I know we're in search of one, and April 14th is on my calendar as the day to go and see our candidates. I feel that it's a leadership position and one that can make decisions, but also allow for the administrators and the teachers to do their day-to-day jobs.
Additional questions from the council? Mr. Green?
Have you been able to attend any school board meetings this year?
I have.
How many?
I believe I came to 2 so far. So are you talking about since August or September? 2.
Okay. And as far
Oh,
as
but I did come to the stakeholder meetings. There were 2 of those as well. Okay, so maybe 4 total.
Okay. The school board, you had a chance to look at the mission of the Hoover City School Board. Do you know what that mission is?
Your mission is...
Just in general, I
Right.
looked at it today, so
Right,
it's fresh on my mind.
As I understand, this is a policy-setting board that would measure some goals from time to time, obviously measurable goals, and be able to provide an outline for the administration at Hoover City Schools. The board reports to the state, so obviously there's that connection as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do you see as the challenges that are facing the Hoover City Schools today?
I noted those in my application. Again, it would be easy to be critical at this point, come in from a very critical point of view, but what I'd like to do is to say that all the challenges, and the first one that comes to mind is a zoning challenge. Where do we put the students? Where do we put all these students that have moved into Hoover? There's got to be a way to get a consensus from everyone and from the community, and then put a plan in place. The zoning, obviously the search for the superintendent, and being able to really work with the city council, almost lobby the city council for ways that the school board can go and work hand in hand together. It's not necessarily a challenge, but it could be something that we could do better with, I believe. I also feel like the schools, they need attention. Some of the schools need a little bit of work infrastructure-wise. Again, that goes along with growth. Some of these same problems with growth are the same things, challenges with the success kind of go hand in hand there. Does that answer your question? Do I need to move on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
President, yes, ma'am, Ms. Shaw. What kind of experience do you have with finances, and are you comfortable being able to dissect a financial statement?
As PTO president, I did have to attend several workshops, very aware of Hoover City Schools policies regarding fundraising and how they appropriate money. This is something that they really, Hoover City Schools drives home to every volunteer organization. So I did that on a volunteer angle. Obviously, I have a lot of documents that I look at every chance I get. And one thing that I try to do as a PTO president was to allocate appropriate funds or move money where I needed to. One example of that was our school resource officer. He needed some training, and it wasn't in the budget for him to do that. But he knew he could come to the PTO, and it was something that we could work with him on, and actually had some money set aside for that. So I do understand the challenges to the financial component of the board, and it is something that I feel like I can bring a new set of eyes to the table, if you will.
About how much are we talking about from an annual budget with your PTO? What, $25,000-$30,000 a year?
Our working budget?
Yeah.
It actually is higher than that. We do pretty well at Rocky Ridge, but it is on the lower end of what you would say in this Hoover City school system.
Sure.
We annually, for instance, for the playground, we were able to raise $25,000 at our little school with limited resources. Mm-hmm. And so that was money that we were able to, again, go into the project. So on top of that, the operating, again, for a very small school, one of the smallest schools with limited resources, it was around a $50,000 to $60,000 budget.
Yes, sir. Ms. Shaw, in your application, you describe why you're interested in becoming a school board member. You say it gives you that platform to contribute insight, learn what you've taken as a volunteer on a tactical level, and apply it strategically across the organization. What is your platform?
I work best when I have a mission, and the mission here is the students. So making sure that Hoover stays among the top level as far as setting a standard in our state and throughout the nation. A platform is a place where I know that I can contribute to that overall goal, keeping Hoover ahead, keeping Hoover's rank high, keeping our students in mind, and making sure decisions that are made are built on a consensus on what is best for them as they're our special interest group. That is what it is, the students.
Thank you.
Ms. Shaw, I find it interesting that you used the term tactical in that statement. What, in your mind, would be a tactical position in working with the platform?
Well,
what form would your actions take?
Well, being tactical means getting on the inside of something and really working from an inside point of view. Because I've done that at my children's schools and volunteer capacity, I think that's where that word comes from. Obviously, the school board is not necessarily the tactical arm of Hoover City Schools. It is a volunteer job, if you will, to be more tactical. I've been able to be at school and child comes to the office and lets us know that attention is needed in the fourth grade bathroom, just for instance. Well, as you probably can guess, it was the fourth grade boys' bathroom, so it needed a lot of attention. That bathroom, from personal experience, it needs, day to day, it needs more than what we're giving it. At a district at this level, with our caliber, there needs to be more there. Again, that's a tactical day-to-day. Strategically, how to do that would be to assess these needs and come up with a plan so that we can fix problems like that. Does that answer your question?
Additional questions from the council?
I guess one other statement I'd like to bring up just real quick. In your earlier comments talking about working with the board and with the city, just want to make sure that you understand that once appointed, a school board member becomes autonomous from the city. You have no responsibilities to the city. Obviously, we'd like to maintain a good relationship, but your responsibilities are thoroughly to the school system and this, whatever requirements they have to higher levels, whether it be state or federal.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next, do a good job.
We will take a short break and resume at 1:30.